In the forest outskirts of the battlefield, an aging general was ambushed by 6 armed hostiles closing in from every direction. Victorious laughter echoed through the trees. "End of the road, old man." His protective detail had fallen. The situation was hopeless, but from the ridge above, a woman with long brown hair and a compact frame appeared silently. She raised her rifle and took a deep breath. 6 gunshots rang out. 6 shadows dropped. Everything went dead silent. Reina Vasquez had perfected the art of being functionally invisible among the soldiers she served alongside. At 30, with long chestnut hair that she kept carefully secured and sharp dark eyes that seemed to notice everything while revealing nothing, she had become part of the background infrastructure that kept military operations running smoothly. Her official designation was logistics and technical support, which meant she handled ammunition distribution, weapon maintenance, and equipment repair. To most of the soldiers at Forward Operating Base Kilo, she was simply the quiet woman who made sure their gear worked when they needed it to work. "She's good at handing out bullets," Private First Class Danny Torres would joke to his squad during equipment checks. "But I wouldn't trust her to actually fire one. Probably never even pulled a trigger in her life." The sentiment was echoed by Staff Sergeant Mike Rodriguez, who supervised the base's weapons training. "If you gave her a rifle in combat, she'd probably shoot herself in the foot. Some people are meant for support roles, and that's fine. We need people to do the behind-the-scenes work." But Reina had heard variations of these comments her entire military career, and she had long ago stopped expecting anything different. She found her purpose in the small acts of service that kept soldiers safe and operational, even if those acts were rarely noticed or acknowledged. Before each patrol, she would inspect and repair body armor for soldiers who couldn't afford to have damaged equipment in the field. When Private Chen's rifle scope had been knocked out of alignment during a training exercise, Reina had quietly recalibrated it to perfect zero without being asked. During the long, hot nights when soldiers pulled guard duty, she would share her precious water rations with those who had run dry. These acts of competence and care were either dismissed as just doing her job or completely overlooked by people who had categorized her as non-essential support staff. Hidden in her personal gear, wrapped in an old piece of canvas, was a silver challenge coin that told a very different story about who Reina Vasquez really was. One side bore the image of a mythical sea creature with tentacles that seemed to reach in all directions. The other side was engraved with text that would have shocked anyone who bothered to read it. Kraken Unit, 6 shots, 6 kills, 2009. The coin represented achievements that felt like they belonged to someone else now. Accomplishments from a life that seemed increasingly distant from her current role as overlooked logistics personnel. As Reina completed her evening inventory of ammunition supplies, 18-year-old Private Marcus Webb approached her workstation. He was new to the base, still adjusting to military life, and eager to learn from anyone willing to teach him. "Hey, Reina," he said hesitantly. "I was wondering if you could help me with something. My rifle scope seems off, but I don't want to bother the armorer with something that might be user error." Reina looked up from her clipboard and studied the young soldier's face. There was genuine concern there, the kind of anxiety that came from knowing that equipment malfunctions could be fatal in combat situations. "Let me take a look," she said, accepting his rifle and examining the scope mounting system. She made several small adjustments with movements that were both precise and confident, then handed the weapon back to Webb. "Try that. Your scope was slightly loose, probably vibrated out of alignment during transport." Webb shouldered the rifle and looked through the scope, his eyes widening with surprise. "Perfect. How did you know exactly what to adjust? That was like professional level work." Reina returned to her inventory sheets. "You pick up skills when you need them. The important thing is that your equipment will work when it matters," Webb would later recall. She handled that rifle like someone who understood weapons at a level they don't teach in basic training. Her adjustments were so precise, so confident. I knew there was more to her story than anyone realized. The patrol had been routine until it wasn't. General Patricia Hayes, the base commander, had insisted on personally inspecting forward positions despite intelligence reports of increased enemy activity in the sector. Her protective detail consisted of 4 experienced soldiers led by Sergeant First Class James Martinez, all of whom had extensive combat experience and unshakable confidence in their ability to keep the general safe. Reina had requested permission to accompany the patrol as part of her equipment maintenance duties, but she had been firmly rebuffed. "This is a tactical operation, not a logistics field trip," Sergeant Martinez had told her dismissively. "We don't need someone carrying extra gear and slowing us down. Besides," added Corporal Lisa Chung, "if things go sideways out there, we need people who can fight, not people who count bullets." But Reina had noticed details in the intelligence briefings that seemed to have escaped everyone else's attention. The enemy activity patterns suggested a coordinated effort rather than random harassment. The timing of recent attacks indicated sophisticated planning. Most importantly, the terrain around the forward positions provided perfect opportunities for ambush tactics. She had tried to voice these concerns during the mission briefing, but her input had been politely dismissed. "Vasquez, we appreciate your perspective," Lieutenant Colonel Davis had said with barely concealed condescension. "But tactical analysis is outside your area of expertise. Please focus on your assigned duties." So she had watched the patrol depart without her, a knot of anxiety growing in her stomach as she considered all the ways the mission could go wrong. 3 hours later, her worst fears were confirmed. The emergency radio transmission came through filled with static and panic. "Base, this is Overwatch 6. We are under heavy attack. General Hayes is pinned down. Request immediate support." The operations center erupted into controlled chaos as staff officers scrambled to coordinate a rescue mission. But Reina was already moving, gathering equipment and preparing to leave the base perimeter. "Where do you think you're going?" demanded Captain Frank Morrison, the operations officer. "To provide support," Reina replied, slinging a rifle across her shoulder. "Negative. This is a combat situation. We're sending a quick reaction force. You stay here and maintain communications." "Captain, with respect, I know that terrain better than anyone else on this base. I can reach their position faster than any organized response." "Vasquez, your logistics support. This isn't your job." The dismissal in his voice was absolute, but Reina was already calculating distances, approach routes, and firing positions. Every instinct she had developed over years of combat operations was screaming that time was running out for General Hayes and her protection detail. She waited exactly 30 seconds after Captain Morrison turned his attention to other matters, then slipped out of the operations center and made her way to the base perimeter. The MK-13 sniper rifle felt familiar in her hands as she moved through the forest toward the sound of gunfire. It had been 3 years since she had carried a weapon operationally, but muscle memory took over as she navigated the terrain with the silent efficiency of someone trained for exactly this kind of mission. When she reached a position with clear sight lines to the ambush site, the situation was even worse than she had feared. General Hayes and 2 surviving members of her protection detail were pinned behind inadequate cover, surrounded by 6 enemy combatants who were systematically closing the distance for a final assault. Through her rifle scope, Reina could see the tactical situation with perfect clarity. The enemy fighters had positioned themselves in a classic kill box formation, with overlapping fields of fire that would make any rescue attempt suicidal. The general's protection detail was running low on ammunition and would be overrun within minutes. She keyed her radio to the emergency frequency. "Base, this is Vasquez. I have eyes on the target area. General Hayes is in immediate danger. 6 hostiles, approximately 400 meters from my position." "Vasquez, you are not authorized to be in that location. Return to base immediately." "Negative. I'm in position to provide sniper support." The radio went silent for several seconds. Then Captain Morrison's voice came back. "Did you just say sniper support? Vasquez, you're not qualified for..." She turned off the radio. Below her, one of the enemy fighters was calling out in accented English. "American General, your soldiers cannot protect you. Surrender now and we will make your death quick." Reina settled into a prone firing position, adjusting her scope for the distance and calculating wind conditions. Her breathing slowed to the controlled rhythm she had perfected during countless hours of training and operational experience. 400 meters, light crosswind from the southeast. 6 targets in a formation that would require precision and speed to neutralize effectively. She whispered to herself, range 400, wind 2 o'clock, 5 miles per hour, 6 shots. Through her scope, she could see Private Martinez, one of the soldiers who had witnessed her rifle maintenance work earlier that week. His eyes went wide as he recognized her voice on the radio. That scope adjustment technique, he muttered to himself. Only snipers know that level of precision. Martinez would later testify, the moment I heard her calculating wind and distance, I knew. Those weren't the words of someone who counts ammunition. Those were the words of someone who had put rounds on target under impossible conditions. The first shot broke the forest silence like thunder. 400 meters away, the enemy fighter who had been taunting General Hayes dropped instantly, the precise round taking him center mass before he even realized he was being targeted. His rifle clattered to the ground as his body crumpled behind the tree he had been using for cover. The remaining 5 combatants spun frantically, trying to locate the source of the incoming fire, but Reina was already acquiring her second target. Crack! The distinctive sound of the Mk-13 echoed across the forest again. The second hostile, who had been moving to flank the general's position, stopped mid-stride as if he had run into an invisible wall, then collapsed backward into the undergrowth. His weapon scattered unfired rounds as it fell from his lifeless hands. Below in the kill zone, Sergeant Martinez looked up toward the ridgeline in amazement. 6 shots, 6 kills, he whispered, suddenly understanding what he was witnessing. The third and fourth shots came in rapid succession, less than 2 seconds apart. 2 more enemy fighters dropped with the mechanical precision of a perfectly calibrated machine. Each round found its target with surgical accuracy, neutralizing threats before they could locate and return fire on Reina's position. The remaining 2 hostiles were now in full panic, abandoning their tactical positions and running for the tree line in opposite directions. But they were moving across open ground, and Reina had anticipated their escape routes. The 5th shot caught the fleeing combatant just as he reached what he thought was safety. He tumbled forward into a ravine, his momentum carrying him out of sight, but not out of danger. The final hostile had made it to a cluster of boulders and was attempting to use them for cover while calling for backup on his radio. Through her scope, Reina could see his lips moving as he spoke rapidly into the device. She adjusted her aim point slightly to account for the partial concealment and squeezed the trigger one final time. The 6th shot ended the engagement. Total elapsed time, 47 seconds. The forest fell silent except for the ringing echoes of gunfire and the distant sound of helicopters approaching from the base. General Hayes emerged from her cover position, staring up at the ridgeline with an expression of complete bewilderment. Her remaining protection detail was equally stunned, looking between the 6 enemy bodies and the position from which the precision fire had originated. "Who the hell was that?" General Hayes demanded. Sergeant Martinez was already checking the bodies of the neutralized hostiles, confirming what everyone could see. Each had been killed by a single, perfectly placed shot. "Ma'am, I think that was our logistics specialist." "Our what?" "Reina Vasquez, the woman who handles ammunition distribution and equipment maintenance. She just eliminated 6 enemy combatants with 6 consecutive shots from 400 meters out." General Hayes stared at him in disbelief. "The quiet woman who fixes our equipment? That's impossible." But Martinez was examining the tactical situation with the eye of someone who had survived multiple combat deployments. "Ma'am, this wasn't luck or beginner's fortune. This was professional-level marksmanship, military-grade precision shooting. Whoever took these shots has advanced sniper training." By the time the quick reaction force arrived by helicopter, Reina was already making her way down from the ridgeline, carrying her rifle with the casual ease of someone completely comfortable with the weapon. She approached General Hayes and rendered a proper salute. General, the area is secure. All threats have been neutralized. General Hayes studied Reina's face, looking for some explanation for what had just occurred. Vasquez, where did you learn to shoot like that? Ma'am, I completed advanced marksmanship training during my previous assignment. Previous assignment where? Reina hesitated, then reached into her pocket and pulled out the silver challenge coin she had kept hidden for 3 years. She handed it to General Hayes, who examined both sides carefully. Kraken unit, the general read aloud. 6 shots, 6 kills, 2009. She looked up at Reina with new understanding. You're Silent Hawk. The name hit the assembled soldiers like an electric shock. Silent Hawk was a legend in special operations circles, a sniper whose confirmed kills had saved countless lives during the most dangerous missions of the previous decade. Silent Hawk disappeared after a classified operation went wrong, General Hayes continued. There were rumors that she had requested transfer to non-combat roles, but no one knew where she had gone. I requested assignment to logistics support, Reina said simply. I wanted to serve without being responsible for taking lives unless absolutely necessary. Sergeant Martinez stepped forward, his earlier dismissiveness completely replaced by respect bordering on awe. Ma'am, we had no idea who you were. We've been treating you like I was just support staff, Reina finished. That's what I wanted. I wanted to serve quietly, to help keep equipment functional and soldiers safe without having to use these skills unless someone's life depended on it. General Hayes looked around at the tactical situation. 6 enemy combatants eliminated with perfect precision, her own life saved by someone she had barely noticed during daily operations. Today, someone's life did depend on it, she said quietly. Multiple lives. You saved my protection detail and you saved me. She turned to address the soldiers who had gathered around them. Ladies and gentlemen, you've just witnessed one of the finest displays of combat marksmanship in the history of special operations. 6 targets, 6 kills, executed under pressure by someone who chose to serve in anonymity rather than seek recognition for her extraordinary abilities. Captain Morrison, who had denied Reina permission to join the rescue mission, arrived with the helicopter support team. His face showed a mixture of embarrassment and amazement as he took in the scene. Vasquez, he said quietly, I owe you an apology. We all do. No apology necessary, sir, Reina replied. I did what needed to be done to bring everyone home safely. General Hayes extended her hand to Reina. Silent Hawk, on behalf of everyone whose life you saved today, thank you. Just Reina, ma'am. Silent Hawk was someone I used to be. Today I was just a soldier doing her job. If you've ever witnessed someone being completely underestimated only to prove their extraordinary capabilities when it mattered most, type, I owe a debt. Despite the dramatic revelation of her true identity and the life-saving precision she had displayed, Reina returned to her regular duties the next morning as if nothing had changed. She was back in the ammunition depot by 0600 hours, conducting inventory checks and preparing equipment for the day's operations. But everything had changed. The soldiers at Forward Operating Base Kilo moved differently around her now. The casual dismissiveness that had characterized their interactions for months had been replaced by a respectful attention that bordered on reverence. When she offered suggestions about equipment maintenance or tactical considerations, people listened with the kind of focus usually reserved for senior commanders. Private Webb approached her during the morning equipment distribution. Reina, I wanted to ask you about rifle maintenance techniques. I figure if anyone knows the best practices, it would be you. Of course, she replied, handling his weapon with the same careful attention she had always given to equipment maintenance. But remember, taking care of your rifle is about more than just marksmanship. It's about making sure you can rely on your equipment when other people are counting on you. Within a week, a handwritten sign had appeared on the depot bulletin board. 6 shots, 6 kills, never forget who watches over us. Nobody knew who had written it, but it stayed there for months, a daily reminder that heroes sometimes work in the shadows. The most significant change came from General Hayes herself. During her weekly inspection of base operations, she made a point of stopping by the ammunition depot to speak with Reina personally. "I've been thinking about what happened out there," the general said. "You saved my life, but more than that, you showed incredible restraint and judgment. You could have leveraged your reputation to secure any assignment you wanted, but you chose to serve quietly." "Ma'am, I believe there are many ways to serve effectively. Not all of them require recognition." "I understand that now, but I want you to know that if you ever want to return to operational roles, you would have my full support and the resources of this entire command." Reina considered the offer seriously. "General, I appreciate that, but I found purpose in this role. Every piece of equipment I maintain, every round of ammunition I distribute, it all contributes to keeping soldiers safe. That's enough for me." That evening, alone in her quarters, Reina sat with the silver challenge coin in her hands, speaking quietly to the empty room. "Miguel, Carlos, Tony, I know you guys are watching. I kept my word. When someone needed Silent Hawk, I was ready. But when it was over, I came back to the shadows where I belong." The coin represented more than just her own achievements. It carried the memory of the Kraken unit teammates who had been killed during that final mission 3 years ago. Their sacrifice had convinced her to step away from operational roles, but their memory also reminded her that some skills should never be completely abandoned. She carefully wrapped the coin in its canvas covering and placed it back in her personal gear. Tomorrow would bring another day of quiet service, of maintaining equipment, and supporting the soldiers who stood in harm's way. The difference was that now everyone understood exactly who was taking care of them, even if she preferred to do it from behind the scenes. Outside her window, the base continued its 24-hour mission, and somewhere in the darkness, soldiers on guard duty carried weapons that had been meticulously maintained by someone who understood better than anyone the difference between life and death in combat. Type "I will live kindly" if you believe that the most powerful people are often those who choose to serve others quietly. This wasn't just about 6 perfect shots. This wasn't just about one woman's hidden expertise saving a general's life during an enemy ambush. This story reaches into something fundamental about human potential and the assumptions we make about the people who serve in supporting roles around us. Reina Vasquez's story is happening right now in organizations, communities, and workplaces everywhere, wherever extraordinary people have chosen to apply their skills in ways that don't demand attention or recognition. It's playing out in hospitals where experienced professionals work in support roles, in schools where former experts serve as teaching assistants, in businesses where skilled veterans prefer background responsibilities to leadership positions. Think about the people in your life who you might be systematically underestimating because their current role doesn't reflect their full capabilities. The maintenance worker who might have engineering expertise, the administrative assistant who might have advanced degrees and decades of specialized experience, the support staff member who might have skills that far exceed what their position requires them to demonstrate. We live in a culture that often measures worth by visibility, that assumes important capabilities always announce themselves, that believes the most skilled people naturally gravitate toward the most prominent positions. But real life teaches us something different. Real life teaches us that some of the most capable individuals choose service over status, prefer contributing to teams rather than leading them, and find meaning in enabling others to succeed. Reina could have leveraged her legendary reputation as Silent Hawk to secure prestigious assignments, command positions, media attention, and all the recognition that comes with being known as one of the military's most skilled marksmen. Instead, she chose to use her expertise to ensure that other soldiers had reliable equipment and proper support, understanding that there are many ways to save lives and that not all of them require pulling triggers. The soldiers who dismissed her as just logistics support learned a lesson that extends far beyond military operations. Never judge someone's capabilities by their current assignment. The person maintaining your equipment might be someone who once operated at the highest levels of professional skill. The person providing support might be someone whose experience and expertise could teach you things you didn't even know you needed to learn. Every day, you work alongside people whose full stories would astonish you if you took the time to discover them. The The challenge is learning to recognize excellence wherever it chooses to manifest, to understand that choosing a support role doesn't mean accepting limitations, and to appreciate that some of the most skilled people prefer to serve others rather than showcase themselves. Tomorrow, when you interact with someone in a role that seems routine or supportive, remember Silent Hawk. Remember that the person helping you might be someone whose capabilities far exceed what their position requires, and that their choice to serve quietly might be the most heroic decision they make every day. If you believe in stories that touch the heart like this one, leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe to NL Touching Stories. We tell the stories that shouldn't be forgotten. Real people are creating and telling stories, not mass-produced AI.